Hello and welcome to Monday's episode of a Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host, Craig Fowler, and I am joined over Riverside by Tony Anderson. Hello, Tony.
Oh, Fowler, how are we?
I'm good. How's it going?
I'm well, thank you. I've not done much recently. I've been staying in. I'm off to London on Friday, so that will stop completely staying in. But I've not done much since I went out for our friend's wedding meal, as it was. What about you? You had a good weekend, did you not? Going by WhatsApp?
Yeah, I had. It was Friday night. It was my mum's birthday, and
oh yeah. How old's your mum now? How old's old Sharon?
Okay, now you're asking.
Sorry,
63. 63.
Oh.
Definitely 63. Born in 61.
She's looking great,
now,
Sharon. She never seems to age, really.
Yes, and so we went for a very nice meal. It was in Clarkston. It was a tapas place. It was excellent. I mean, one of those ones when you first go in and like all the staff are Spanish, you're like, oh, this bodes well, and it was very, very good. Yeah, very good. I absolutely fucking loads of beer. I deliberately starved myself. So when it came mealtime, I was munching away. Stayed up very late, and then into Saturday, got up, set my alarm, got up for watching the Celtic Aberdeen game, still steaming. And then but I stayed off. I was like, right, I'm gonna stay off the booze until the Hearts game because I didn't want to be absolutely. I didn't want Sunday to be a complete write off. So, but I'll have a couple of drinks for the Hearts game, and that was needing that.
Sunday was a write off.
I slept until 1, but I was fine after that. I wrote my column, but it was fine. But it was getting towards 3, and I was like, I'm definitely going to need a beer because I am starting to feel quite rough. And that's why I started with a bottle of WKD because it was just like something easy to drink. And then I moved on to the beers for the rest of the game. I did large WKD and 4 beers in total. And then yesterday was just mainly about chilling, getting my column written, and that was it. But the only downside
what's the column? What's the column this week? So Neil Warnock's a stupid idiot or something. It's always negative.
A big Brexit loving fanny is what it is. No. Start off by talking about Warnock, just briefly saying it's a good idea for Aberdeen, bringing somebody who's going to be a very steady pair of hands. He's going to improve them between now and the end of the season, and then he'll piss off in the summer. And they've got a bit of time now to hire somebody good. But it's kind of why did now? Why did it take so long to do this? Like, it was clear for months Barry Robson was the right man for the job. But I do go into the kind of things. I do have certain amount of sympathies with, like, Robson was good in Europe. He got them in the cup final, but still, once the cup final was done, see you later. Instead, like, allows Aberdeen to get beat by Hearts and to draw at home to get gubbed by St Mirren and draw with Dundee and draw with St Johnstone and drop just more points that they shouldn't really be dropping. So
St Mirren was in a deer. It was time to go then. That was the...
Yeah, I can't believe you could survive a 3-0 defeat at home.
Yeah, that's exactly. It should be the same for Montgomery, but the same thing's going to happen. The exact same thing's going to happen. We're going to have to go through. We're going to have to get beat by Hearts. And we're going to have to humped by the Old Firm. We're all going to have to do all that shit. Then we'll draw with Dundee in a few weeks at home, and then finally the trigger will be pulled. And we'll bring in some.
But the only downside, and this is for the YouTubers only. So just before we went home on the Friday night, my mum's looking after a dog right now, and she said, "Can you do me a favour and just walk the dog in the back garden?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." But she had wee steps going down the garden, and there were wood, and it was raining. It was really, really slippy. Like, and I mean, I didn't go down the steps like hurriedly. I was drunk, but I was like, "No, I better take my time here. I didn't want to fall."
Not with your bloody back, Fowler.
Exactly. As soon as I put my right foot down, I went flying right up in the air, crash landed on the steps. It was fucking agony. And you could just see there, my bruise I've got right on my elbow broke my fall.
I can see it.
It was one of those ones that right away I looked at it, it was like already swollen. I was like, that's not broken, is it? But, no, was
it a proper comedy fall? Full legs in the air?
I think it was. I went right up in the air and crash landed. The dog's just kind of looking at me like, what you did?
Yeah. My owner doesn't normally do this. Who's this fucking guy?
So Simone doesn't act like that normally. What's going on?
Who's this drunk taking me down the stairs?
So yeah, anyway, is there a link to anything? No, there's not. Right, let's get to talking about the weekend's football. And so we kind of typically this season we've gone with the games that have been the most entertaining, but let's hold off on Dundee Hearts for now. And let's go with the games that are probably the most important in terms of this campaign. So let's start with a game that I watched earlier today. And that is Ross County 0, St Johnstone 1. So a huge result in terms of, are Ross County capable of making this, of pulling away from, well, they've already away from Livingston, but you know what I mean, like staying close to Motherwell, staying close to St Johnstone, meaning that there's at least going to be a battle for that relegation playoff spot. And obviously a lot of people, I done the podcast with you the other day, not really liking a lot of County's January window, their form under Derek Adams, what Derek Adams has been saying after games. So this was a big match for them to get something, and they didn't. They were beaten 1-0 by St Johnstone. Benjamin Kipoeka scoring just over 10 minutes before half-time with some woeful defending from Will Nightingale. And yeah, Tony.
Will Nightingale didn't sort of bank on this striker turning into Thierry Henry as he waltzed in.
I know,
because I would say
he was also helped out. He was helped out a bit by Ayinya as well, who should have just showed him on his outside and dared him to beat the goalie at a tight angle with his left foot instead of allowing him to cut back in and find the far corner. It was a nice finish, but he was kind of helped. He was able to make up his mind a bit easier thanks to that shit defending.
To be fair to the big man, though, I mean, I wouldn't be banking on a lot of strikers picking up the ball from that era wide and going in and scoring a goal. To be fair to him, I wouldn't be banking on a lot in the Scottish Premiership.
Especially
so it was quite the announcement for the big man.
Yeah, so I've watched this game. I think the most interesting thing about this game, it did have quite a really kind of interesting tactical wrinkle in it, which was that Graham Carey started as a number 6 for St Johnstone and played there the entire game. So it was Carey sitting. So Phillips was out, Smith was out, Sprangler was on the bench and stayed there for the 90 minutes. So it was Carey with Connor Smith and Max Kucheravi ahead of him. So very kind of lightweight midfield. Now, St Johnstone got the result they were after. I think County shaded it in the first half, but St Johnstone had definitely had chances of themselves. You could see, I'll get onto it, but I did think overall this was potentially a case of the operation being a mistake, but the patient living. It's like the opposite to when a manager gets his tactics spotted, but they still manage to lose the game.
You've woke up with your right arm now as your left arm, and it's not working properly.
And there's probably benefits to that we don't know.
Yeah.
Nobody's done it.
Yeah. Well, you can make it feel when you're wanking, it feels like someone else is doing it.
You can open doors without facing them. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's something that people want to do, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it did work in some respect. The St Johnstone fans listeners will probably say what you're talking about, because Carey, so the chances that they had in the first half, so the Connor Smith kind of had a chance, and that goes back to brief tangent. That goes back to something I was saying with you, and I think they've signed Connor Smith because he showed, not at Tynecastle, but he showed elsewhere that he could be a goal-scoring central midfielder. And St Johnstone are crying out for a goal-scoring central midfielder. He did get in the box and had a chance. And do you know what? I don't think Connor Smith is quite good enough yet to play at this level consistently, but he did have a decent game. So that kind of bodes well. Maybe I'm talking shite on that one. But with Carey, so he creates a chance for Tony Gallagher, when Gallagher takes a really nice first touch, but then on his right foot puts it over the bar, and then he makes the goal for Kipoeka as well. Obviously, Nightingale playing a huge part in that. So in one respect, the work and Carey did have a good game with the ball. However, I think County still had County didn't have many good chances, but they had loads of opportunities around the penalty area to make something happen. And St Johnstone, to me, especially for the first 60 minutes, St Johnstone looked very easily to play against, with County just kind of going through the middle of them. Mm-hmm. I'll get on to talk about Jan Danda in a minute, but he, first half in particular, had a lot of the ball. Then Levein changed it. He still kept on the same midfield 3, but he brought in 2 forwards. If you only looked at this game on Google, you wouldn't know who one of the forwards was, because Google just literally has a blank space beside his name, and it's got sub-made. It's just a blank space, like, coming on. Kipoeka coming off, forward. Blank space coming on. Yeah, it was Adamas Sidibe who came on for his debut. And so he went up front, and Nicky Clark came on at the same time, and he went 3-5-2. And that nullified County a bit more. They still had the kind of lightweight midfield, but it just shrunk the space a little bit and meant that when County got in and around the box, it was 3 centre-half to deal with instead of 2. And I thought that McGowan and Andrew Considine in particular had very good games. And then County just ran out of ideas, really, ran out of steam a bit, ran out of ideas. The last 50 minutes for St Johnstone, considering how the rest of the half had gone, were very easy, very comfortable. Davy, after I thought he looked shit for the first 10 minutes or so, but then I think he got used to what was a bit of a bobbly pitch and was quite good at keeping the ball and running it into the corners and just kind of wasted time. Connor Smith done that a couple of times as well. And yeah, by the end of the match, overall, County didn't deserve to lose this. But by the end, they looked kind of bereft.
Mm-hmm. It's starting to look like it's a feature of Craig Levein's time at St Johnstone in terms of moving people round position. Obviously, Jaisimi being used as the sort of nominal striker. And he done another one in this game that I was going to ask you about, because like Gallagher was used as a proper winger in this game, playing like as a left winger. How did that go?
I mean, it was all right. Like, he did get that chance and he got forward a bit. I think they would much rather have just a normal out-and-out winger there. I know he's kind of seen as an attack-minded fullback, but I mean...
Still not the same, because coming from deep with the ball is very different than taking the ball, because wingers quite often still take the ball with their back to the goal, and they have to do turns and step overs, blah, 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 to create space for themselves, which you don't really have to do as a fullback often.
They were the players that didn't really do that much in the game. Gallagher on one side, it was Franzak on the other, with Franzak went to wing back in the second half when Keltjins was forced off, and they brought in All You Funwa. First time we've seen him in a while, and there's another player we'll get on to soon when we talk about the Killie Motherwell game, if I remember to talk about him, is somebody who looked kind of useless at the start of the season. He didn't look out of place, so maybe it's just he was kind of already written off as a bad signing, along with a few of the guys that St Johnstone under Steve McLean brought up from England. But he was, I mean, we knew that before he arrived. He barely played any competitive football, and he just looked raw as fuck. And so maybe just a case of him needing a bit of time to adjust. But I thought that was interesting. He came off the bench and done fine. Aye. And
with Keltjens was playing. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I don't know. Keltjens, whatever.
He got hooked at half time. Was that injury, or did he get?
I'm not entirely sure. I don't think he played badly. I don't think he played necessarily badly enough. Murray was drifting out to that side quite a bit and was getting a little bit of joy, but not like he was like ripping him all the time. So I would have been a bit surprised if it was a proper right. You've been absolutely useless. Get off. But
yeah, Murray didn't get the same joy as he got during the week against Livingston, where he was having what looked like a fucking riot. But right, Danda then. Talk to me.
Aye, so Danda got a lot of the ball in the first half in particular. Second half, not an awful lot. They crowded him out a little bit more. He didn't have really much of an impact. And so he created probably the biggest chance. There's 2 big chances in the first half for County. One was Danda himself, where he done well. He played the through ball for Murray. It was just intercepted, but then Danda ran on to the loose ball, took a touch, and then played his shot over the bar. And then there was the other one that James Brown had, where he came in at the back post and probably should have scored. But other than that, County, for all the opportunities they had, not just this half and the other one around the penalty, they didn't do enough with it. And I just look at Danda, and as somebody that's coming in, as a Hearts fan, as somebody coming into Hearts, I worry about Danda in that, does he just stand out because he plays in like a bottom 6 club and he's like very kind of good technically? Like his touch is really good. He plays the game with his head up. He can take a really good set piece. But how many times does Danda kind of make a goal out of nothing? Like,
it's always set pieces mainly he gets his assists from, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was thinking like, so he's going to come into the Hearts team next season. Necessarily might not start. George Grant is improving as this campaign's going along. Barry Mackay's out. He'll be coming back. But just to kind of compare him to Mackay, I mean, if Danda's signed to just be a squad player, I'm still perfectly fine with that. But if he...
That would be my presumption. That would be my presumption.
If he's signed in mind to start most weeks, I think... I look at him and Mackay and I think if you put Barry Mackay into that Ross County team, would they be better off than they are now? And I think the answer is maybe yes.
Yeah, well, I think Barry Mackay certainly does a lot more in a game when the game's moving and the game's live and it's not dead. Danda, though, is a squad player, I think maybe quite good. I think Danda's quite often, and I think this is maybe part of the reason why he's been used off the bench for Ross County over the years when you're thinking, well, that's a bit weird. He's one of their better players. But he comes off the bench and he can make an impact. And in a more stretched game, a player like that, when they get time, it can be really, really good. So I can see that that's probably where he might not know it. He might not have been told it, but he's probably going to end up being a squad player at Hearts. And to be honest, like he's been on the bench for Ross County. It's not new to him. So it's certainly a move up for him. And I still think if used correctly, he could be useful for Hearts. It's just about not having these wild expectations from Hearts fans when he comes in that he's going to be like an incredible number 10. That's because he's not going to be.
Good luck with that, pal. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, what were the other kind of big results of the weekend? Let's go to Pittodrie. Let's go to the early game, which took place on Saturday afternoon. 1 each between Aberdeen and Celtic. Bojan Majowski giving the host the lead after Aberdeen were very much second best in the first half. Celtic had a goal disallowed after a lengthy VAR check. They had other chances to take the lead, couldn't really do it. And Aberdeen, they didn't look like there was going to be any kind of reaction from dispensing with their manager. They were just very much second best over the park. Second half, completely different story. Aberdeen, as good if not better than Celtic in that second half. Scored the goal, had other chances to win the game, but Celtic get a escape with a point with Kuhn coming off the bench to make his debut and getting a goal set up by a wee kind of layoff from Adam Ida, as well as the new boys combined to make sure this game wasn't that bad for Celtic. But it's just another example of, like, think of Celtic last season. So under Ange in the first campaign, they were, very good, especially as the campaign drew to a close. Very, very good. But there were still points, even in the latter half of that season, when Celtic could be got at. Like, especially like the last 20 minutes of games when they maybe kind of ran out of steam a bit and they're kind of high pressing that kind of took its toll on their legs, and especially at the end of a long campaign. I mean, you saw that with Rangers beating them in the Scottish Cup semi-final when Rangers had just been playing in Europe a few days earlier, that Rangers looked the more fitter team in extra time. And that was just because I think the Celtic style of play. But even when they were very good that season, there was points, and especially early in the campaign, that they could be got at. Last season, they were just so dominant. Like, they just absolutely laid waste to anybody. And in any game that they looked a bit susceptible, they scored twice at injury time or once at injury time or something, and they pulled out a result regardless. To go for that, and to only really... They lost Jota, and Hatate's missed a lot of the season through injury. But that's about it. And to see that team go from that to this...
That is the two best players.
That's a fair thing to
Kyogo
say.
going off the boil, which, don't get me wrong, could partly be Rodgers' issue. That's the three best players instantly dropping off. And this isn't a defence of them, but I think through this you're going to find that it's no surprise that the teams that are really struggling, Ross County, Celtic, relatively speaking, and Hibs, is none of them know what their best team is, and they're chopping and changing every week. And with Ross County, they're chopping and changing shape as well most weeks and during the game. So the Celtic just do not. Like, as you say in this game, with Hatate not being there, they actually lost control of the game in the second half. It wouldn't happen with Hatate there and used correctly.
That's true.
He keeps the ball game taken over. But there's no excuse. That's not an excuse. It's a reason, but it can't be used as an excuse because Celtic have so much resources that shouldn't be the case. That if we remove one player, even their best, from them, that there should be the amount of issues that they're having in almost a weekly basis now against pretty much anyone. The style of the team, they do it against the worst teams in the league, and they do it against the better teams in the league. It can rear its head at any point.
Yeah, and I think positives for Celtic. Well, they should have the game out of sight in the first half. I mean, it's no good excuse. They have to expect Aberdeen to do something to step it up a bit in the second period. But they should have the game out of sight before then. They're just a bit wasteful in the final third, and that's... Talk about guys not performing. Like you said, you mentioned Kyogo, Abada. Just gotta keep forgetting he's come back from injury. I keep thinking he's out. I think he came back in December. Like, he's just not really done anything since then. And
it seems like his head's elsewhere, eh? They're just going by the little snippets you get in the media about, and obviously not too impressed about how the Celtic fans talk about, obviously, the war And I'm really not going into any depth here, the war in his homeland. And that seems to... And it probably would rub you up the wrong way, whether I agree with the Celtic fans or not. And I think that...
whether you agree with Abad or not, or whether you agree that he's been, he's
what his country's doing or whatever.
That
would have an effect on you.
If you believe in your own country and if you're patriotic and you think what your country's doing is right, regardless of whether that's actually the case or not,
true or not,
you're going to probably feel that tension.
And it sounded like the noises again. I don't have any facts. I don't have any insight into Celtic. Noises were he was probably angling for a move in January. That's what it sounded like to me. But Celtic are in no position to be letting guys of Abada's standard when he's at his best to go. So it's just another in the long line of like small issues that seem to be snowballing for Celtic, and you feel like you're on the they're struggling all the time, but you feel like you're maybe on the edge of full-blown crisis might happen.
Yes.
And there's also the issue because the fans are ready to go for Rodgers' throat anyway because he's not popular. So you've got that added part of it. At least even with Neil Lennon, it took a bit of time to get to the point where they were wanting his head on a stake because of who he was. But Rodgers, they'll be ready to go the second Rangers get above them. They'll go off on one.
And I said this in the group chat on, I think it was Saturday. It was either Saturday or Sunday, but I was saying, like, I actually think Rangers are going to win the title now. But I've kind of started to roll that back now a little bit. I think it's because Celtic are missing key players. Hatate's out. Maeda's obviously away. I still think that if they get... Like, you just look at the team, and you look at the team of last season, you're still like, right, it just needs, like, because it can go one way. You get the feeling that there could possibly be a collapse from the Celtic team because the vibes are completely off, but it also could just be that they get these guys back and then everything clicks again and it's fine and Abada starts scoring.
It doesn't have to be perfect for them to win the league either.
No, exactly. And Rangers are still more than capable of dropping points against kind of similar opposition. But so also as well, so Adam Ida, he made his debut. Now, if you follow us on TikTok or Instagram, you'll see Ewan saying in a Patreon podcast we done last week that he thinks it's a terrible signing for Celtic because he's somebody in his career who has never really scored goals. And he not only doesn't really score goals, he didn't really get chances to score goals. And that doesn't sound ideal if you're Celtic. You want somebody with good movement around the penalty box. You always think like, if you give somebody to Celtic or Rangers who's like good at finishing but doesn't really get their own chances, that they'll do fine because like they'll just get loads of chances on a plate. But no, you still need good movement in the penalty area to do that because there's about 1 billion bodies back there all the time. And every time the ball kind of went into the Aberdeen penalty area, I was looking at him and like, because I was thinking, Ewan's going to look like a fanny. And because I was on the video with him, I'm going to look like a fanny as well if this guy scores on his debut. But he never really liked scoring. I was like, he looked fucking pish. But I've went back and had a look. Do you know what he looked good at? He looked good at playing the part of a number 9 who's going to do more than score goals. And it's not really worked all season with Kyogo being asked to do that. It doesn't suit him as much. I don't know why Rodgers asked him to do it. We've talked about this loads of times.
Yeah, me and you especially, yeah.
Yeah, it's a mistake for the manager. He should be just letting Kyogo do what he does, which is... He does...
Score 40 goals.
He does play a part in the build-up, but he's just so deadly at just arriving in the box to side foot or a low cross home. Get your team to do that for him, and then you'll just score loads of goals. But for whatever reason, Rodgers didn't want to do it. Ida, to me, looked like somebody that could do that, but his career would suggest he's not going to score a lot of goals himself. So you're still, even with Kyogo not scoring a lot this season, you're losing a goal threat from that. And then you need somebody like Abada to get back to his best. You need Maida
because he's a proper goal scorer. He scores like a forward. He scores like a striker. The goals he scores are like a striker. He plays the wide area like a striker. He's more of a, to go into technicalities, like an inside forward rather than a winger. And that used to work really well because Jota would go wide and the balls come in, and then they basically with other players, it would end up that you basically got 2 strikers. Celtic could afford to have that from a wide player.
And then Palma as well. Palma's gone off the boil a little bit recently. He needs to just rediscover his early season form. So the pathway is certainly there for Celtic to motor away again and to take full advantage of any Rangers slip-ups. But at the same time, it's really kind of a balancing case here as I'm talking about this. on the verge of meltdown, could easily get it together in the next couple of weeks. Just go either way.
I was just waiting for you to use the word for a Celtic striker to be called a facilitator. And Celtic strikers, I'm sorry, can't be called facilitators. They can't be. That is a name for Ross County, St Johnstone. These are their strikers, can be called facilitators. Celtic strikers cannot be. They must.
Well, who knows?
They must.
He might score loads of goals just because it's like we've seen players come up before with not great score records and score goals in the Scottish Premiership. So it could just happen that way. But I certainly kind of saw what Ewan was talking about when I was watching him move around the penalty area on Saturday. Right,
and then we're seeing the issues from no, but like for the Aberdeen point of view, we see the issues. The back line comes up for that Miovski goal, and you've got Scales and Naroki at the back. I mean, they've got. Like Miovski, it's a great goal. It's a great goal, and he's so deadly, and he shuffles. He should never be able to come inside there. He's left-footed as well. He should never, ever, ever be able to do that. Like against Hearts, with the one disallowed, it was because of what happened before that allowed that space for him to get the exact scenario that he wants. But still, just from an Aberdeen point of view, from Miovski's point of view, he's just getting deadly, man. It's proper like that's one chance stuff. He's having to beat a defender, sort of turn him inside out. He's getting a chance with a ball over the top. So much to do, but you fancy him when he gets into the position. And it's an absolutely like top-class finish. And we've spoken about this before, but even he was a goal scorer last season. He has come on leaps and bounds. And the fact that he's had a problem with managers and he's doing it in a team that has struggled. Is quite incredible actually for him.
All the players like around him have struggled.
Yeah, and he's like the beacon of light for the whole team. And if I was another manager of a certain level, I used to scoff at some of the names that he was getting linked to, but now I'm like, he can pretty much do. He's not going to be the best striker in the world, obviously, but he can pretty much do everything you would want a striker to be. He's like a really, really rounded forward, and he was the polar opposite of that last season. He just looked like a poacher. Who couldn't play with his back to goal. And he's got faster. He's also got faster. And that is possible to do. But his sprints are much better. And just, I have to take my hat off to him to have done that, because I get the feeling he's kind of done it by himself rather than through any sort of coaching. But I don't know if that's true. That might be being completely unfair.
Yeah, probably. But it does feel like that just because they've been that bad this season, apart from him. I mean, some of the other players are playing right. Like McGrath's been good, and Polvara's kind of came on a bit as well. But yeah,
and Devlin.
Yeah, Devlin's been a decent enough signing.
They went with the four at the back, and obviously Duke still was out the team. But I think it was like maybe a return to form for Graham Shinnie from what I saw with the well balance. I know he missed the sitter, but he looked like
he was but you've got to score that chance, man. You've got to score it.
You've got it. Because you go and win the game. That team, the Celtic team, didn't look like they had it in them to probably come back. Even the goal that they got to get back in the game had lots of elements of luck to it. It's so they didn't look like Aberdeen probably could have stopped them. And another worry for Celtic is that once Aberdeen got to grips with them defensively, because in the first half I thought Aberdeen, I only got to see the first half, then I went to Easter Road, unfortunately. But in the first half, Aberdeen didn't look that switched on. They were all over they were all at sea. The back four wasn't well set. It looked really worrying. It looked like a team that had just lost their manager, and there was a bit of chaos around. But they sort of got to grips with it, and that's another problem for Celtic. Playing against a team, they struggled to score against a team who were defending poorly. Not great. Not great from a Celtic point of view. So yeah, but fair play to Aberdeen. They made a bit. And what about Roos? I thought you might want to talk about. He made a few big saves, but also he looked all at sea at points.
Well, we should probably move on. We're only there half an hour. We've got 4 games to go. We're on a bit of a time limit as well. But I said it like after the midweek goals, like Kel Roos. I'd said when we done that podcast, we drafted the players out of contract. What was that, last month? Was that only last month? Was that? Yeah, last month. That didn't think Roos has had a good season. And since then, he's made a couple of big errors in Scottish Premiership games. And yeah, he seems to have not quite fallen off a cliff to the same extent of Shamal George at Livingston, but he's had a mini drop. He's done a bit of cliff jumping, like when you just jump in the water. it's not terminal or anything. He's no longer at an elevated height. What the fuck am I talking about? Right, anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on.
Right, yeah, it's important. So let's go for the game at Easter Road, because that could be, in terms of the final European place. I mean, Aberdeen were there 2 games in hand, and if Neil Warnock comes in and can be as good as he was in his last job with Huddersfield, where he basically saved them for relegation. If he could do kind of similar things with Aberdeen, then you'd maybe fancy Aberdeen to rock up the table and get fourth, and then you're talking between Kilmarnock, St Mirren, Hibs, Dundee for that final space. But regardless, right now, St Mirren with that 3-0 victory at Easter Road, all goals coming in the first half, with Alex Gogic, a Greg Kiltie penalty, and Michael Mandron scoring, that they're now 6 points ahead of Hibs. Hibs do have a game in hand, but we talked about earlier, it looks like Hibs are inevitably heading for a change of manager, because things are just going from bad to worse under boring old Monty.
Oh, God. That guy, man, he fucking rubs me up the wrong way. There's just...
better or worse than Lee Johnson? Where we going here?
Oh, much worse. Lee Johnson, there was always a performance in the offing. You knew you were going to have a good day at some point with Lee Johnson. Even when he got sacked, he did have a brilliant result. He managed to get one in Lucerne and stuff like that. There was always... The problem with Johnson is there's never any consistency. That's his entire career. I mean, he's even got a nickname for it. And to get a nickname like that when you've got the amount of games under your belt as a manager, Johnson... Yeah, to get that when now he must have about 550 games under his belt. You must be streaky, because there's a huge body of evidence to do it. But Montgomery, as I said, I mean, when we done the YouTube only one with you last month, I was just saying that he doesn't give you anything to hang your hat on, man. He doesn't give you. He doesn't look like he's not inspiring. You don't get on board with anything like that. So you only get what you see on the park with Montgomery. There's no other side bit. And the more it goes on, that guy is fully excuses, man. Fully excuses. He looks like a rabbit caught headlights now, because I can see that there's panic in him. He doesn't really know what to say. So he just comes up with the same sort of cliched like excuses all the time. And like this time where we're going, he's been desperately trying to sign centre-halves all month. And he gets 2 in. And then at the end of this game, he's bemoaning the fact Highland and Rocky aren't there. He's actually, for fuck's sake, you said they were the problem. Like, you can't have it both ways. And like the choice of centre-halves as well, one of them's definitely his guy. I mean, Trantis, who had a terrible game, that's his guy. There's no way, that's not, Foley's not involved in that, nobody's involved in that. It's his guy by a mile coming into. So... And I said when I done the YouTube that I thought he might get hung out to dry, because I didn't think to be honest, I didn't think the Foley thing was going to get ratified in January. That was my feeling, and it did manage to get into the end. So they did manage to do a lot of business towards the end, and he got a lot of what he needed in terms of how the players are sold to you, in terms of like the gaps in the squad that was done. But again, Hibs, it was a lot of loans, and I think that does tell you a little bit. They're not letting him. To me, it sounds like he was sort of getting put on trial with sort of like, Foley's not the owner. Foley is obviously 25%, blah, blah, blah. But I think he's going to have a lot of say when you're putting in that amount of money. And I already have my theory about, I think he's going to have a huge say in the football side of things anyway. But in Montgomery, like, there's graphs on there for StatsBomb now where XG goes way down for Hibs and the XG of the opposition goes way up. I'm no stats guy, but it doesn't look great. And it's just, as I said, there's just nothing to go on. And it was funny, my mate was posting Neil Warnock videos of him going Raj in the dressing room, and Nick Montgomery's in all of them. And I like, can't imagine him doing that. So it's like, you've been sort of brought up by Neil Warnock, but you feel like you're the polar fucking opposite of it. And just with zero personality, I don't know what it's like behind. So like I said, there's nothing for you to cling to, apart from what you see on the pitch. And what you see on the pitch is absolutely fucking rotten. So, I mean, that was one of the worst performances ever from a Hibs team in the first half. It was shocking for so many players. I will talk a bit about St Mirren, because I didn't want this to go to it, but I don't think I would get many arguments with St Mirren fans if I go, you didn't have to do too much to absolutely dominate that game and win it. And I don't think many of them would argue. I think a lot of them were laughing at the standard of the Hibs team during it.
So what do you want to start with then? Do you want to start with praising St Mirren, or do you want to start with some of the big hitters from Hibs in terms of absolutely shocking performances?
Well, I mean, with St Mirren, like Boyd Muntz, I thought was really good. I think he's a player I quite like. I thought Gogic looked well up for it, as you would expect, but Gogic is having a really good season. You don't really, everyone's having, it's like every year you have to change what position you think he's best in. So 1 year you go, he's definitely a defensive midfielder. And then he sort of turns shit in there. So I think the key for Gogic is you learn there's a sell-by date on every position and try and get ahead of it and move him into the other position before he turns shit in it. Because at centre-half this season, he's been really good. In a back three, I think it really suits him because I think we spoke about this before. He's got decent passing ability for a defender. He's got terrible passing ability for a midfielder. So in a back three, it works really well. And Gogic is, I think, his speed's a little bit underrated. I think he's quite quick. He can recover
I would say so.
quite well, and he can cover ground. And obviously, he got his header, which was just all about him really wanting it more than a large amount of players in the Hibs box. And we'll come on to like how this. I mean, Sportsing did a decent job of it with Marcondes. But again, my argument would be like against Kilmarnock, why is Marcondes getting these key roles in defending set pieces when he's like a number 10 sort of free kick merchant? But
he looks about 5'8" as well.
Yeah. Why is he in the heart of the zones? If it looks zonal, he's the heart. But again, we'll come on to that. And Mandron, he's come on a lot, I think, as a player.
Yes.
Because I was always like, Ayunga, I always thought miles better player. And Mandron, I thought, was quite a smart one for St Mirren because he has similar attributes to Ayunga, which means that when one's not available, it means that you don't have to change up completely how you play, which I always think is important. I mean, you do want other options, but when you've got a key striker in a style the way Robinson plays, that style of striker is probably going to be needed. And with Mandron, he's got a lot. I mean, the goal he got was absolutely gifted from a corner. He's able to side foot a corner in at the back post on the ground, and it's not touched anyone on the way. But he was causing the centre halves plenty of bother. He was backing in. But St Mirren, really, all they had to do was put balls in the box. There's no other tactic. And this is what would really worry me for Montgomery is once the Scottish Cup goes, when he plays Inverness are watching. They don't have to be brilliant, and they're not brilliant. Inverness are a bang average championship team, but they'll be bang up for it. They'll be going out. They'll Duncan Ferguson watching these videos. You can only imagine the type of things he'll be saying to them about getting into Hibs' face and just constantly asking questions and putting balls in the box. And it's hard to think that they won't score at least two goals, because it is that basic to get your goals. You saw them with Kilmarnock. Again, you're not having to work hard to get that goal. You're just crossing the ball in. There's nothing else to it. And I mean, you saw the one that they scored, was it the Kilmarnock the other week, when it just the exact same guys side footing in at the back post, and everyone's just ball watching it. The goalie's not coming. So I don't want to criticise it, but I thought they were quite emotionally intelligent during the game as well. They didn't let they knew to let Hibs have it. They let the crowd play off Hibs. They would stand off them at times, and rather than going in their face, let them give the ball away. Actually concentrate on trying to intercept it rather than try to go and win it, because you can see that their heads are gone, fans are going crazy. So let's just let them give us the ball, and then we'll have many more players to spring counterattacks. And because Hibs still had 60% of the ball, obviously. It was and if you look at the stats, it doesn't look like a game. When you look at the Y-Scout stats, it doesn't look like Hibs still putting the same amount of crosses, all this nonsense. But St Mirren are just able to do it 10 times more. And if I could now have the floor to talk about Hibs, I'd be more than happy to.
Ellie Johan, it's always a bit of a bummer when you're calling for something from the manager, saying like he needs to be playing here, he can't be playing him here, and then the manager eventually, obviously he's not listening to you, but he eventually goes with what you've been saying, and the player puts in an all-timer of a bad performance.
But then he played up front for about 30 seconds, and then he was moved out to the left. and Melida was put up front, and then later on in the half they swapped back. And at the start, like Johan was there, and you could see Johan, like he won a few headers early on in the game. This is what I was saying, and he won the ball, and he played a good pass inside. At this, like we're holding the ball up, and that was always my point with Johan, is that he does have those abilities that would make him a better shout than Martin Boyle in that centre forward role, because he's got other things that he can add, and I would stand by that. And also, there is also a body of evidence of Johan playing up front well, so it's not like this is the first time that it's happened. It happened last season, and he was very good in the role. But then he moved out to the left, but they looked like they didn't have a clue what they were doing in terms. Like, I'll give you the shout. Like, when they first came on the pitch, every single player went to play on the left. Melida, Yuan, and Tavares all started to come over to the left. And then Tavares, I saw Tavares do the, oh, sorry, and then running over to the right, and Yuan went up front. So that gave me a little bit. I was like, oh no, that's not a good start. And then Yuan, when he was out on the left, by Christ, he just gave the ball away every time he done it. He done one where, and he does this sometimes, the ball came over, and I think we were 2-0 down at the point, and he just stood still with the ball, and you're like, yes, that's, like waiting for the guy to commit himself. And I get it, you're confident and you can do that. You're wanting him to do that because you can dart past them. You're 2-0 down though. The guy will just stand in front of you. He's not going to commit. He's no reason to. We could stand, that defender will happily let you have the ball for the next hour, and nobody will move a muscle. That's not happening anymore. That's gone. That they're going to overcommit at any point. And he was getting the ball, and then there was passes going to him where it looked like he'd get there, and then he'd just stop and let it go. He looked like a man that looked completely unhappy with his lot. Melida fell over the ball at one point when he was dribbling. He just sort of just fell over his feet, and he had a few decent touches during it. And Dylan Levitt, they're talking about you and having an all-timer stinker. Levitt's getting away with fucking murder with that, because again, the 4-2, you're probably it is probably morphing more into a 4-2-3-1 now than the 4-4-2 with the introduction of Marcondes. Because he's more naturally dropping in. When Venti was actually playing this role, it didn't work at all. But Levitt, he gave the ball away 3 times in a minute, and I checked my watch to do it. He was jumping out of tackles, as we all know. He's got that in his locker when he's no fancy it. People were just running off him, and it won't. The 2 deep players, they can't be Levitt. It can't be. He doesn't have enough, and every single player wants to drop off and get the ball. Levitt wants the ball in space all the time. He tries to make passes. He was a great pass against Kilmarnock for the goal. I don't want to not talk about some of the things that he does. He does bring, and he does do it sometimes, but nowhere near enough to have to balance the negatives of having him there. And it'll never be enough. And we all know the best period he had in Scottish was when he was loan, and he was playing a more attacking midfield role, Dundee United. And then ever since then, he's been getting further and further back, despite relegating teams. And not everyone keeps doing it. So he was absolutely hopeless. And then you've got a right-hand side. You're playing St Mirren, Fowler. St Mirren. And you've got a right-hand side of Rory Whittaker and Jair Tavares. Where do you think the ball's going? Constantly. And I feel for them because they're both young, inexperienced, weak physically. Whittaker's not ready. That's and this isn't good what they're doing. What's happening with Whittaker here isn't good. It's not a good thing. He's being targeted every week. He's having a really tough time. And it's not helping anyone. And he's making errors every game, as you would. But even they brought Megwa in, and Megwa was the same. He was struggling in that position now. So it was an absolutely atrocious performance. And I would just mean balls just being passed out the park, no communication. It did look like a team that had never seen each other before. And I know there was new players brought in. But my God, he's went to Dubai, so he's lost all that one where he's not had a pre-season to implement it. Well, he got given a fucking holiday to go and do it. And it's only got worse since then. It keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And just there's now nothing for you to hang your hat on apart from he's got 2 other midfielders that he's brought in. I'm assuming aren't ready, even though he told me he was only wanting players that would be ready to hit the ground running immediately. And then he's brought midfielders in, and the 2 in the midfield has been one of the most problematic positions in the team, and then none of them are able to play immediately. So they brought on Welch at half-time. I stayed for about 15 minutes because I just wanted to see. I really wanted to see. Normally I would leave at that point, but I wanted to see if there'd be a reaction, to see, is this team actually with him at all? And Welch came on, and it looked like he had much more energy and he had more bite. But again, it's really hard to judge players when it's 3-0 in a game. The game's not the same as what a game normally is.
Aye.
So he's got that. So he'll probably get another shout when he's able to replace Levitt. And then we're getting to get to the stage, well, that's all the issues that looked like there were. You've now pogged them, and it's still getting worse and worse and worse. You need to fuck off, mate.
Right. Somebody who certainly does not need to fuck off is Stephen Naismith, because Hearts just keep on winning.
Here he comes.
Here he comes. Dundee 2, Hearts 3 for the second time in just a matter of weeks. The Jambos beating Dundee by 3-2, and coming from behind to do it as well. The last time they were 2-0 down and came back to win 3-2. This time they were 1-0 and 2-1 down. But Lauren Shankland, again, pulling Hearts out of it. They did do it in the last Dundee game, but this one, he's done what he's done a lot this season and was just the main man. But I don't want to make it sound like Hearts are a one-man team, because second half in particular, I was quite impressed with Hearts overall. And it does actually feel like, so all season long, well, after the first month or so, the defence then got sorted. So then that was what Hearts were getting the results off of. Not conceding a lot of goals, keeping clean sheets, Frankie Kent coming in, being the ball-winning defender, the guy who's going to heed it away, he's going to block shots, just do your basic defending stuff, which is something that Hearts had, by their own fault, kind of fallen away a bit. As soon as Craig Halkell got injured, they never replaced him last January with somebody who could do that job. It was just too many defenders, like your Toby Sibbics, like your Kyril, Stephen Kingsley's, who are more football players than they are defenders. Yeah. Kent's just more a pure defender, and he sorted that outside the game. However, early in the campaign, the attack was just, well, they didn't know how to attack. We kept saying it. Like, Rob's a lot more positive Hearts fan than I am, and he was saying that earlier in the season. Like, this team doesn't know how to attack. And they didn't. They were kind of all over the place. But recently, the goals have been totting up now, and they just look a lot more dangerous in games. They're playing with better tempo, playing with more confidence, and just more, they're getting more bodies forward. I think he's maybe just
Tempo's everything, man. Tempo's everything. When I watch a team, that is the main thing that I always look at. When I've watched Hearts recently, which I've seen them a few times, because you've been playing on different days from Hibs, and that, so I managed to see a few games, and you just look a lot more incessant. So when it's normally the second half, normally takes our Hearts a bit of time to get going.
Yeah, it still takes 45 minutes to get fully up to speed.
But when I watch it now, it just starts to look much more incessant, which was always the sort of classic Hearts that I thought. It doesn't necessarily. It's fast paced. You play quickly forward. It's not. You don't play intricate, but you just keep banging on the door, and the team doesn't get a second to rest. And you see this now with the Hearts team in the second half. That's exactly what they're doing, which is much more what Naismith was selling when he first came into the job.
Yeah, and you've seen it with the change of formation as well, and it's not very often that a manager's going to change the shape of his team when things are going well, and things were going well. But Naismith decided, it was halfway through the Dundee game, 3 at the back, he went to the 4-2-3-1. It helped Hearts get back in that game. I didn't think he should have kept it for the Aberdeen match, and I think Aberdeen had their number in the first half due to the change of shape. But it ended up getting the result, and then he sticks with it for this one. So he's changed it now into a more attack team, 4 at the back, 2 wingers, get the wingers running. The first half was a lot about getting the wingers to go kind of beyond their marker and trying to get balls in the box. And there was opportunities to do that. Oda had done it a couple of times, although mainly I think Beck had his number. Forrest a couple of times managed to do it on the other side. But their crosses were just to nowhere. In the second half, it was just a lot better in terms of just getting kind of more support to them, and instead of getting the ball to the byline and kind of cutting it back, to instead just run at their men and try and create stuff that way. And you see that being a huge part of at least 2 of the goals. The Forest one, which is made by Shankland, where instead of playing it out wide, they kind of play it inside, because Dundee, and they've done it a lot during the game, and it was their downfall was that when Hearts players were running at them, unless it was Oda going up against Beck, really, when Hearts players were running them, just get backing off all the time. I mean, you do that, and you just get somebody, Lauren Shankland, who's very capable of getting a ball in tight spaces, manoeuvring it so he can get a shot away, or in the case of the first goal, manoeuvring it so then Forrest can take it off his toes and stick it in the far corner. And then obviously the penalty, I mean, I don't really see the controversy at all. It's a fucking shit rule, but his hand's away from his body. His hand it's at a right angle. It's at a 90-degree angle away from his body.
It shouldn't be a penalty, but in
it should be.
Nature.
No,
and I've been saying, but it is. I think it got I didn't think there was a penalty, the one at Easter Road either for St Mirren. I don't know, that might be because he's about a centimetre away.
That one looked like it came off his thigh, and if it did, it shouldn't be a penalty.
Aye, and I didn't think, even if it does go directly his arm, it's so close. It's just so close that the guy doesn't know what's happening. He's trying to balance. I hate the handball round who's been butchered to the point that you're trying to figure, every week you're having to figure it out. You don't know, and it changes so often. But that's why we try not to go and talk about it too much, because it's just boring. It's a boring thing. We'll let everyone else talk about it because they do it anyway.
And then you see Shankland as well for the winner, just going at does brilliantly to nudge Dodgson out the way. I mean, again, Dodgson, like, you're so rash. Like, just chill the fuck out, man, and you might be a decent defender. And then he gets it, runs it, Ashcroft, and then Joe Shaughnessy, instead of going to Lawrence Shankland.
It rubbed all of the rest of them rubbed off on him during that period. Everyone rubbed off on the other shiters, because Shaughnessy's normally, if nothing else,
it goes to mark space, but there's nobody there. Yeah, Shankland's obviously going to shoot.
Aye. And it's a great finish, but that's I feel sorry for Dundee in the sense that they've managed to build. I'm going to go into Dundee because anyone who listens to this probably knows that I quite like this Dundee team. They've built a good enough squad, and they added to it in January with guys like Main coming in, and they've obviously got with Mellon and Main, so now they've got Bakayoko and Robinson, so they've got. But if they're always playing two up front, it means that they've always got options for there and they can change it round. But it's just the one place that they don't have any depth at all is kind of in defence, and the drop off between the guys that start in the back three and the backups drops quite considerably with guys like Dodgson coming in there, and it's the one place they can't afford it, and it's costing them every game because every time I watch Dundee, I tot up they're arguably the better team. Nearly every time that I watch them, they're set. I'll put my neck on the line. I've said this. I think they're the best team to watch in the league. I love watching Dundee games. I love watching the way they play. For him to do that with a newly promoted team and bring in lots of players in, obviously, to get going, for them to play such a pleasing style of football, and like they have, and like the key components to that, it all matches up because Bakayoko as a striker really makes that happen because the ball always sticks with him. What's one of maybe Craig Anderson or someone in the group chat referred to him as or Joel, maybe he's like Stephen Fletcher, and I thought that was a really, really good comparison because he's like early time Stephen Fletcher, because Stephen Fletcher didn't score enough goals in his early days either, but he's like the way that he Bakayoko gets everyone else into the game and all those little sexy one touches off, man, I think he's a tremendous player to watch, and he'd be great to play with even a midfielder, and the balance in that midfield is tremendous. I mean, I've been through this loads of time, but they're just so pleasing on the eye. The goals he scored in this game were really good. And McCowan's goals, that's a lovely goal with a great finish. But yeah, they even though they score goals, they still lack killer instinct in the centre forward area, and they are always going to give you chances at the back. And the fact is, they're at a higher level with good teams, and like you're saying, with guys like Lawrence Shankland, those. If you make that mistake, it's a goal. You know, it's not a question. You make that mistake, you've conceded a goal. There's no two ways about it. And Hearts were able to kill that. But I've seen it with Dundee so many times, and I feel for them because they should be in a position where Europe's real.
Something I wouldn't say at the start of the season, I'd say particularly, Dundee really missed Ricky Labby. They missed that steady head on the left of the back three that they've just not got at the moment.
But Portals, Shaughnessy and Lammy, it really works. And it's got Portals is really good with the ball at his feet as well. But you see, take the two out, the guys that are coming in, and Ashcroft and Dodgson. And this is a problem when you use a back three. It means you need 6 centre halves, and it's hard to come by.
Right, let's move on to our penultimate game, and let's go to Ibrox, because Rangers have now cut the gap at the top, meaning that if they win their game in hand, they will go level with Celtic, although Celtic do still have a better goal difference. But I'd just like to kick off our chat about this game by reading the stats from it. So I'll go through Rangers and I'll go through Livingston. So Rangers, 32 shots, 8 on target, 77% possession, 695 passes, 88 passing accuracy, 9 fouls, 0 red cards, yellow cards, there was none in the game at all, 1 offside, 14 corners. Livingston, shots, 0, shots on target, 0, possession, 23%, passes, 224, passing accuracy, 57, fouls, 6. They had less fouls than Rangers. Red cards, 0, yellow cards, 0, offsides, 0, and corners, 0. Were you even trying Livingston?
I would like to laugh at Livingston, but if you look at the halftime stats in the Hibs St game, then I'm in no position to. It wasn't a million miles away from that. There was certainly no shots on goal in the first half, and St Mirren had scored 3 goals. So, and at least Livingston were playing Rangers. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Like, Livi, from a Livi point of view, they are just done. They really just seem like. I mean, I know it's hard to go to Ibrox. You're in a terrible run. You did manage to get a result in midweek against County. It's not the result you wanted. You really need a victory, but the fact that you fought back, got the 2-2 draw, you really want to be playing an opponent that's not Rangers at Ibrox or Rangers or Celtic anywhere. Really, give you anybody else that gives you, a puncher's chance at getting something and building a little bit of momentum.
They looked all right in that County game. They created a lot for the first time. I know County are shit as well, but they just created a lot of chances, and they were unfortunate not to get. And you think there's something to build momentum from there, and then it's like, oh, Rangers at Ibrox. Oh, well.
Yeah, aye. But still, you would expect them to put up more of a fight than that. Jesus,
of course.
It's bad.
Of course. Because even with Rangers, like, I don't think, like, Jack, for example, they didn't need to play Jack and Lundstrom, but I think they just looked at it as a game to get Jack some minutes in his legs. Yeah. I think it's no matter what we do here, we will win. There is no way of not winning this match. So we might as well get Jack in there and get him going, because as you see, Livingston had so little fight that they're not even fucking fouling anyone. So they can't even get injured.
Like, to be fair, there is a good degree of luck about the opening 2 goals. And so if you're Livi, that's one thing you can maybe point to and say, like, this could have been better for us. Like, Silva's shot is headed for the corner flag, it looks like, before it takes the deflection and goes in. And it's a foul. And why VR is not calling that a foul? Like, we've talked about VR far too much, and it's complete fucking pointlessness. And there's just the latest in what must be about 100 examples in Scottish football alone by now. And then Matondo's one. He tried a few speculative efforts in this game. None of them were particularly good, but this one was a bit better. But it did take a big deflection that they helped it on its way in the back of net. Good goal for the third, and Rangers could have scored more with. Silva could have getting his first goal, starting to look a bit lively. Look, he's getting a bit settled, and Oscar Cortez looking kind of like an old school winger down that left as well. Like, looking to just take on his man and get a ball in the box. Always nice to see somebody like that. But don't know what much else to say about this game. Completely one-sided stuff.
Yeah, I think Fabio Silva will look like a really, really clever signing from Rangers. He's got obviously really high quality, but it's the style of player he is. He's very good at taking the ball in tight areas. He's very good at sort of one-touch passing, tidy little flicks. So once everyone gets up to speed around him and they can gel a bit, that's exactly the type of player Rangers need to have in there. They play against extremely deep defences all the time. So a forward with that intelligence level, that touch and ability. And you saw it with the little, when he flicked it up and he tried to score on the turn with the scissor kick.
Yeah.
That went wide. Rangers need imaginative players in there because it can get so congested. So I think he's going to end up looking like a really, really clever signing. And also, Dessers is starting to come onto a game. He's been much better. But this allows to alleviate the strain on Dessers, where it's not, you are the main number 9, you must score all the time. And it means that they can use him in and out and sort of play Dessers into being. It might give them the space to turn Dessers into the go-to guy. If you keep on banging at stuff, like I mentioned with Rory Whittaker earlier, it can be the same thing. I know he's not a 6-year-old boy, Dessers, but coming in, big club, high expectation, that can kill someone over time. I mean, it did to Lammers. That's exactly what happened. And that the same thing could happen, but this protects that. It protects that.
If Lammers not just rubbish.
But Dessers, it protects the long-term investment of him as a player, and it buys him a little bit of time where they don't have to constantly chuck him out, maybe when he's not feeling at his best. So I think Silva will end up being like a really, really quite cute bit of business for Rangers in that window.
Right, let's get on to our final game, which took place at Fir Park, and that was Motherwell 1, Kilmarnock 1. Kilmarnock took the lead through an excellent shot from Lewis Mayo from outside the penalty area, drilled it into the bottom corner. Motherwell equalised for Theo Bair just 7 minutes before the half. And I quickly managed to watch this one before we started the podcast. And Motherwell started the brighter of the two teams in like the opening 5 minutes. And then after that, from that point until about half an hour in, Motherwell were really quite poor. And Killie were definitely the better team. But from that point forward, Killie didn't do anything. And Motherwell were undoubtedly the better side and could feel that they, out of the two, would be the one that should feel like they should take all 3 points. I think the big difference from having watched this was that early on, Motherwell were going long to Theo Bair quite a lot, and you can't do that. Theo Bair
We've been through this. St Johnstone showed it doesn't work.
Yes. Theo Bair is getting a lot better, and he certainly is. And he had another good performance after the first half an hour. But not first, especially the first 25 minutes. Fucking hell, he was shocking. Like, he wasn't winning anything in the air. Joe Wright was just towering over him with every header. And at the times when he did manage to get his body in between the ball and Joe Wright, it was just bouncing off him, and it was just a disaster. And it just kept coming back. Then Motherwell managed to get the ball on the deck a bit more. Dabrowski, Halliday got into things a bit more. Payton and Spittle kind of dropped deep, started a bit more kind of passing triangles. And then there was a wee warning for Kelly not long before the goal where Bair, who, like I said, hadn't done anything to that point, managed to get Joe Wright booked because it was a kind of long ball over the top. Finlay was covering. Wright didn't have to give away a foul, but you could see at that point he was very much aware of the fact that Bair, while not a threat to win anything in the air over him, really was a threat in behind. And you see that with a goal. Great times he's run perfectly. It's a great ball through, and he does well to keep his cool and finish.
And that's actually how you should use Bair, and he showed that recently. It's weird that they go back to the long ball stuff into him and treat him like a target man when they go up against a team with like all centre halves as defenders who are all very, very good in the air. It's like the last game I would want to do this with Bair. It's probably if I pick him one would be against this Kilmarnock team. So that's bonkers from Kettlewell if that was what he actually wanted them to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the fact they changed it during the first half would mean that he maybe was out shouting at the players like, "Come on, get the ball on the deck. This is not
Remember what we spoke about
this game." And they did for a wee bit. So Graham mentioned this in the WhatsApp chat where he said that Kettlewell swapped O'Donnell and Mugabe and Motherwell started playing well, and that's actually true. He did. He didn't keep it for the entire game, but he did swap them for like the last 15 minutes of the first half where Mugabe went to right wing back.
Mugabe was playing wing back.
Yes.
Fucking hell. That guy goes anywhere.
The thing is, it wasn't like that much a deviation all game because it's once that started, Mugabe, so it was just before then, Mugabe took the ball on a run down the right and whipped in a cross. And it was cleared, but it was kind of the catalyst for for Spittle to have a shot that was saved, which I think made the highlights. And then Kettlewell must have been like, oh, let's try this. But it also meant that when they were going long to get the ball directly up the park and to basically set their stall quickly in the opposition half of the field, that a couple of times straight for kickoff, they kind of arrowed it straight to Mugabe instead, and he kind of held it up, and then they went for there. Brilliant. But both of them after that, both of them were going down the right quite frequently, and that continued in the second half, even when they switched it back, and Mugabe was centre half again, and O'Donnell was right wing back. Both of them were kind of bombing forward that side, and that was where Motherwell were getting a bit of joy. The only thing I would say from a Motherwell perspective is a bit disappointing was that it didn't really, for all the kind of decent play in the second period, they never really had that many kind of chances to go and win it. And you're still looking at the team that played the majority of the match. Like they only made 2 subs the entire game. And the second one, bringing on Sam Nicholson for Dabrowski. Like the earlier one was Miller coming on for Halliday with 15 minutes to go, which Halliday I thought didn't have a too bad first half, but his passing was a wee bit erratic. Dabrowski, like at that stage of the game, you'd be on top for like a lot of it. Like get somebody else on who's more of a kind of who's more known for putting the ball in the net or making something happen. Like Harry Payton that far forward, not really a fan of it.
Not at all.
Spittle obviously, yeah, but that just means all you've got Spittle, Bair, and Gent kind of coming down the left hand side as in proper like attacking players to try and help you get a goal. It just wasn't enough attacking quality on the pitch from Motherwell at the end, and Kettlewell really should have changed it a bit earlier. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to Motherwell. Do you want to just give me more quick thoughts on Killie?
No, I'm saying we're obviously Big Van Veen coming in and just looking at the Killie squad now. I think it's really smart from Killie. Like they're sort of pushing the boat out a little bit. I would say Ken Van Veen is a pushing the boat out signing. I presume from a Kilmarnock point of view. But to do that with a manager like McInnes, he's proven it. He's doing well. He's got his own guy in for the transfers. The other players that he's brought in have worked. So this is exactly how clubs should operate. That now, right, okay, we've got trust. We've got a good system going. Let's actually push it out a little bit. Take a calculated risk. Well, we've got this position, especially for the season where Kilmarnock, I mean, You play well, there's opportunities to hit Europe here easily with them. And now you're looking at the options. You've got Greg Stewart coming off the bench, Gary Mackay-Steven. I don't know if he's going to be a great player. I have no idea. And Van Veen, and you've got Vassell, Watkins, and Kennedy. Suddenly you're looking at them like loads of options there. If someone's not doing it, they're out the team. I think like the fight for places is a big thing for pushing players, just like contracts are. I know we make jokes about it, but it's fucking true. These things do drive players when they're there.
And also as well, like Kyle Vassell, he probably needs a rest for a couple of weeks to maybe come off the bench more, to maybe recharge his batteries a bit. He plays a very, very robust style of football, and that's even on him, that's got to take its toll over the course of the season.
Yeah.
Kelly made 2 changes with just over 20 minutes to go, which still didn't really do anything in an attacking sense, but it helped stem the flow a little bit because Greg Stewart and Rory McKenzie came on. McKenzie gave them a bit more energy in the middle of the park. In the midfield area, and Stewart just added that little bit of quality up front, which meant the ball stayed up a bit more, and it wasn't just all one-way traffic. And the game just kind of petered out. Was it a good game to watch this?
So Stewart did play centrally?
Yes, he did.
Okay, for the time
Thank
being.
The Lord. Thank the Lord. For the time being.
I was listening to your podcast with you, and I loved it when the penny dropped that he was just going to do it all again. Exactly.
He's saying all these wingers. He's got a number 10. He's going to change it. He's going to stick Stewart out of the wing. Fuck.
I'm just something that he can't let go. He was definitely right. I was right. It just didn't work that time. This is the signs of Derek McInnes insanity. Greg Stewart's the one.
Right, that'll do us. Tony, thank you very much for joining me.
Anytime, Craig.
And thank you to everybody for listening. If you would like to hear more from us, the best way to do so is head over to patreon.com/Terrace Podcast, where there's lots of exclusive podcasts to listen to from as little as £2 a month. There is alternatively, you can watch us. You can watch us on YouTube. We are putting up videos that are made especially for YouTube. The audio will be going into one of our Patreon tiers as well to make sure our loyal listeners who made sure that we got to this point where we can make YouTube videos aren't going to lose out. But if you're going to watch it and you want to watch us talk about the kind of some of the biggest storylines in Scottish football, for instance, this week, so long as there's no last minute cancellations, Craig Kearns and Joel Sked will be talking about Neil Warnock being hired by Aberdeen. So you just heard it on YouTube. It's just the same as everything else, Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. There's also Terrace Podcast on Twitter, Terrace Podcast on TikTok, Terrace Podcast on Instagram. Just sign up to them all. It's great.
When are we going to start making the TikTok videos? Like, I don't know, the family where we all do little dances. We'll do that. Caravan or something.
We'll do that after the hospitality trip in March.
yeah, great.
Absolutely reeking.
Right,
goodbye.
So what